Welcome back. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating areas of British numismatics. United Kingdom 1-penny coins. But not just any coins, we're talking about the top 7 rarest 1-penny coins that still carry huge value even in damaged condition. Yes, you heard that right. Even scratched, bent, or worn-out pennies can sometimes sell for shocking amounts at auctions, leaving collectors in absolute awe. If you've ever dismissed an old, damaged coin thinking it's worthless, then this video might completely change your perspective. So let's get started. First up, the United Kingdom 1-penny coin from 1917. Now, you might think that a worn or even damaged coin has very little value, but when it comes to rare British coins, even those in poor condition can still surprise collectors at auctions. We'll explore the history, unique features, rarity, and market value of the 1917 1-penny coin, while also giving you helpful tips if you happen to own one. The 1917 1-penny was minted during the reign of King George V, who ruled from 1910 until 1936. This period covers some of the most turbulent years in British history, including World War I. By 1917, the war was still ongoing, and resources were stretched thin across the United Kingdom. Coins minted during this time hold a special place in history because they reflect not just the economy, but also the struggle of a nation at war. The 1-penny coin, made of bronze, was an everyday piece of currency that passed through countless hands, buying essentials at a time when life was full of uncertainty. The obverse of the 1917 penny features the portrait of King George V, designed by Sir Bertram Mackennal. This portrait shows the king facing left, wearing the imperial state crown, with the Latin inscription, Georgius V. de Jure, Brit. OMN, Rex Fid. Def. And IMP, which translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. On the reverse, we find the classic seated figure of Britannia, holding her trident and shield, symbolizing Britain's strength and maritime power. The date, 1917, is displayed at the bottom, making it easily identifiable. Even in worn and damaged condition, these features can often still be recognized, making the coin highly collectible. Now, here's where things get interesting. While the 1917 penny had a fairly large mintage, many of them did not survive in good condition due to heavy circulation and the economic struggles of the wartime period. Coins from this year are often found worn, corroded, or damaged, but that doesn't mean they are worthless. In fact, collectors are often fascinated by coins that carry visible marks of history, especially those from wartime years. What makes the 1917 penny even more attractive is its connection to World War I, an era that shaped modern Britain. Even coins in damaged condition can find strong demand among collectors who value their historic significance more than their physical perfection. When it comes to market value, condition plays a huge role. A 1917 1-penny in fine or uncirculated condition can fetch thousands of dollars at auction, with pristine examples reaching even higher prices. But what about a coin in worn or damaged condition? Surprisingly, these can still sell for between $25,000, depending on the severity of the damage and how visible the details remain. Rare cases of slightly better preserved but still worn examples may go for $40,000. Collectors are often willing to pay a premium because the coin represents a tangible piece of World War I history, and even a damaged coin carries that legacy. If you happen to own a 1917 penny in worn or damaged condition, don't dismiss it too quickly. First, avoid cleaning it, as cleaning can reduce its value. Second, store it properly in a protective case or album to prevent further deterioration. If you're considering selling it, check recent auction results or consult a reputable coin dealer to get a realistic estimate. For collectors looking to buy, keep an eye out for coins that, even in poor condition, still retain legible details such as the date, the portrait of George V, and the Britannia design. Remember, rarity and historical significance often outweigh condition in the world of numismatics. The 1917 United Kingdom 1-penny coin is more than just an old piece of bronze. It's a witness to history. Even in worn or damaged condition, it carries the story of a nation during wartime and holds strong appeal for collectors around the world. While pristine examples bring in the highest values, even the most humble, battered penny can still command interest and respectable prices at auction. So, if you come across one, treasure it. You might just be holding a small but powerful piece of British history. Next up, the United Kingdom 1-penny coin from 1912. Now, you might be thinking, how could a coin in worn or bad condition possibly be worth anything? Well, when it comes to rare coins, condition is just one piece of the puzzle. Age, mint marks, historical context, and collector demand often play a far bigger role in determining value. The 1912 one penny is a great example of this, as it remains highly collectible despite many surviving coins being in heavily circulated or worn condition. The 1912 penny belongs to the Edwardian Georgian coinage era. It was struck during the reign of King George V, who ruled the United Kingdom from 1910 until 1936. Britain, at that time, was still a global superpower, and coins like the penny circulated widely across not just the UK, but also in parts of the empire. The 1912 penny was minted in huge numbers, but what makes it interesting is that some were struck by the Royal Mint in London, while others were outsourced and minted by the Heaton Mint in Birmingham, which added a tiny letter H mint mark on the reverse of the coin. This little detail is where rarity starts to matter. The coin features a left-facing portrait of King George V on the obverse, with the inscription Georgievs v de jare, Brit, OMN, Rex FID, Def, AND, IMP, which translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. On the reverse, you'll find Britannia seated with a trident and shield, a symbol of Britain's naval dominance. The date, 1912, sits below, and if you're lucky, you might notice a small H beneath the date, marking it as a Heaton Mint issue. Coins without the H were minted in London. While the design itself is classic and beautiful, the key lies in those mint details. Now, here's where things get fascinating. The 1912 penny minted at the Royal Mint is relatively common, but the 1912 H Heaton Mint penny is significantly rarer and attracts much higher attention from collectors. Even coins that are in poor, worn condition are still chased by coin enthusiasts simply because they're part of an important series. Another point of rarity comes from error strikes or unusual varieties, which occasionally surface at auctions. Since most of these pennies were heavily circulated, finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is almost impossible today. That's why collectors sometimes even go after worn examples, because rarity outweighs condition in cases like these. So what's the actual value of a 1912 penny in bad or worn condition? For a regular 1912 penny without the H mint mark, heavily circulated examples might only fetch a few dollars, often in the $15,700 range. However, the story changes dramatically when we talk about the 1912 H penny. Even in worn condition, these coins can sell for anywhere between $21,000, depending on the exact grade. But here's the kicker at auction. Examples in much better conditions have sold for several thousands, even reaching over $30,000 in rare cases. This shows that while a heavily circulated coin might not bring a fortune, it still holds historical and collector value. If you happen to come across a 1912 penny, the first thing you should do is check for the mint mark. Look closely under the date to see if there's an H. This tiny detail can make a huge difference in value. Secondly, don't dismiss coins in worn condition. As long as the date and features are identifiable, they still hold collector interest, especially when they come from rare mints. For new collectors, buying worn examples can be a budget-friendly way to build a collection without spending thousands. And lastly, always handle old coins carefully and avoid cleaning them, as improper cleaning can reduce their value significantly. The United Kingdom one penny 1912 may not look impressive at first glance, especially in bad or worn condition, but its story tells us otherwise. With ties to King George V's era, the presence of the rare Heaton Mint H issue, and its continuing demand in the collector's market, this coin is far more than just a piece of old copper. Next up, we are diving into the fascinating world of British rare coins. Our focus will be on the United Kingdom one penny from 1930, a coin that, despite being in damaged condition, still attracts attention from collectors around the globe. Many people are surprised to learn that even coins that show heavy wear, scratches, or surface damage can still carry significant value due to their rarity and historical importance. So, let's uncover the story behind this coin and explore how it continues to shine in the auction market. The British penny has a long and storied history, serving as one of the most iconic denominations of the United Kingdom's coinage. By 1930, the penny was still struck in bronze, featuring the familiar portrait of King George V on the obverse and the seated figure of Britannia on the reverse. These coins were part of everyday circulation, used in shops, markets, and daily transactions. However, what makes the 1930 penny particularly interesting is its place within the broader timeline of George V's reign. Production numbers were lower compared to earlier years, and surviving examples that have lasted almost a century are now sought after by collectors who cherish both its history and scarcity. The 1931 penny carries the crowned portrait of King George V, facing left, surrounded by the Latin inscription Georgievs v de jare, Brit, OMN, Rex FID, Def, IND, IMP, which translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. On the reverse, Britannia sits proudly with her shield and trident, symbolizing Britain's naval power and strength. While many surviving examples show heavy wear, even damaged pieces still preserve these historic symbols. A key point to note is that 1930 pennies are scarcer than later George V issues, which is why even those in less than perfect condition can command collector interest. Rarity plays a massive role in determining the value of a coin. The 1930 penny is not the rarest British penny, but its mintage numbers were comparatively lower, and the fact that most surviving examples have been heavily circulated adds to its scarcity. Collectors often seek this coin to complete their George V penny series, making it an essential piece. Even damaged or corroded examples can find buyers because of the year's demand. Remember, rarity combined with historical context makes even flawed coins desirable, especially when a missing year in a collection needs to be filled. Now let's talk about what really excites collectors: the market value. A 1930 penny in mint state or uncirculated condition can fetch anywhere between $25,100 or more at auctions, depending on eye appeal and grading. However, since today we are focusing on damaged condition, the values are different. Even a worn, scratched, or bent 1930 penny can still sell for around $20,200 in the collector's market. Some heavily corroded pieces might bring only a few dollars. But surprisingly, if the damage is light and the date remains clear, values can be much higher because collectors are eager to secure the year, no matter the condition. Auction platforms often see these coins attract bidding wars, especially when buyers are determined to complete their George V series. If you own or are planning to buy a 1930 penny in damaged condition, here are a few tips. Ensure that the year 1930 is still visible, as the date is critical for collector demand. Cleaning often reduces value, even for damaged pieces. Natural patina is usually more attractive to collectors than a polished surface. Prices fluctuate, so look at recent sales to know the current demand. Even though your coin is damaged, rarity still counts. Many collectors are willing to accept flaws if it means owning a piece of history. The United Kingdom 1 penny from 1930 may not be perfect in condition, but its historical significance, relative rarity, and collector demand ensure that it remains a valuable treasure in the numismatic world. Whether worth just a few dollars or fetching much higher sums at auction, this coin tells a story of Britain in the early 20th century and the enduring legacy of King George V's reign. So, if you happen to find one in your collection or tucked away in an old box, don't dismiss it just because it's damaged. It could still be worth more than you think. Next up, we'll be looking at the United Kingdom 1 penny from the year 1937. Now, you might be surprised. This coin is not in mint or extra fine condition, but in very damaged condition. And yet, because of its rarity, history, and collector interest, it can still hold a surprising market value in dollars. So, let's dive deep into its background, its special features, and why even damaged pieces are sometimes sought after in the world of rare coins. The year 1937 marked the beginning of a new royal era in Britain with the coronation of King George VI, the father of Queen Elizabeth II. To commemorate his accession, a new coinage series was introduced that same year. The 1 penny coin of 1937 was struck in bronze and became a part of everyday circulation throughout the United Kingdom. What makes this coin particularly interesting is that it represents one of the early coins of King George VI's reign, issued just after the abdication crisis of 1936, when Edward VIII stepped down. The 1937 penny, therefore, carries both political and historical weight, serving as a reminder of a turbulent but transformative period in British history. The 1937 1 penny features a left-facing portrait of King George VI, designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget. Around the portrait, you'll see the Latin inscription Georgives 6D, G, BR, OMN, Rex F laughing face, IND, IMP, meaning George VI, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. On the reverse side, the classic seated Britannia design is displayed, holding a trident and shield, a design that had been used on pennies for over a century. The year, 1937, is clearly inscribed at the bottom. Even in damaged condition, these features can often be recognized, and they help establish authenticity. Collectors pay attention to how much of the design remains visible, as it affects grading and ultimately the coin's value. While the 1937 penny was not struck in low numbers, finding one today in any collectible grade is becoming more difficult due to the passage of time. Millions of these coins circulated, but most have been lost, melted, or heavily worn. In very damaged condition, a 1937 penny might not seem appealing at first glance. However, collectors who aim to complete full-date runs of King George VI pennies sometimes seek even the lower-quality coins to fill gaps. Additionally, some damaged coins still carry value if they feature clear minting errors, unusual wear patterns, or are linked to historical collections. It is this combination of historical context and collector demand that allows the 1937 penny to maintain a place in the rare coin market, even when heavily worn or damaged. Now let's talk about money. In uncirculated or excellent condition, a 1937 one penny can sell for anywhere between $20,000 depending on grading. Exceptional examples can reach even higher at auctions. However, in very damaged condition, the value drops significantly. Most of these coins will sell for around $10,500, depending on the extent of the damage. That being said, there have been cases where heavily worn coins, if tied to specific collections or displaying unusual mint errors, have fetched $25,200 or more in the auction market. So, while it may not be a fortune, even a damaged 1937 penny can be worth more than its face value, especially to the right collector. If you come across a 1937 penny in very damaged condition, here are a few tips to keep in mind. Look closely for double strikes, off-center minting, or unusual details. These errors can drastically increase the value. Even if damaged, avoid cleaning or polishing it, as this can further reduce its value. Collectors prefer coins in their original, untouched state. Always research recent auction sales and dealer listings to understand the fair value before selling or buying. Damaged coins are often easier to sell if part of a larger date run, where condition gaps are less noticeable. The United Kingdom one penny of 1937 is a fascinating coin from the early reign of King George VI. While an example in very damaged condition may not command thousands of dollars, it still holds historical significance and a modest value in today's auction market. Collectors continue to seek them out, whether for completing sets or for their connection to a pivotal moment in British royal history. Next up, the United Kingdom one penny from the year 1928. Now, you might be thinking, what makes a coin in very dirty condition so special? Well, the truth is, even coins that look heavily worn or covered with age-old dirt can hold extraordinary value in the collector's market. The 1928 penny is a prime example of how rarity, history, and demand can turn an ordinary-looking piece of copper into a treasure worth big money in dollars at auctions. The 1928 one penny was issued during the reign of King George V, a period when Britain was transitioning through economic challenges after the First World War. Coins of this era were struck in large numbers for everyday use, but many never survived in good condition due to constant circulation. What's special about the 1928 penny is that it marks the late years of George V's reign, just before his death in 1936. The coin carries not just monetary history, but also a story of Britain's economy and everyday life in the late 1920s. For collectors, this makes the penny much more than just a small copper disc. It's a piece of living history. The design of the 1928 one penny is iconic. On the obverse, it features the portrait of King George V, facing left, with the Latin inscription, Georgius V. de Jure, Brit, OMN, Rex FID, Def, IND, MP. This inscription translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. On the reverse, we see Britannia, seated proudly with her trident and shield, a design that symbolizes Britain's strength and naval power. Even when found in very dirty condition, the design remains recognizable, and collectors often see this natural aging and patina as part of its authentic charm. In fact, some prefer coins with original dirt or toning because it proves they were never tampered with or artificially cleaned. Now, here's where things get interesting. While millions of pennies were minted in 1928, surviving examples in collectible condition are becoming harder to find. Many were melted down, lost, or damaged beyond recognition. Even dirty examples attract strong interest because collectors value originality over artificial shine. A 1928 penny in very dirty but intact condition can still be rare, especially if the details of King George V's portrait and Britannia remain visible. For specialized collectors who focus on date runs or George V coinage, the 1928 penny is a necessary piece to complete their set. And as demand grows, even coins in heavily aged condition can fetch impressive sums. When it comes to auction value, the 1928 penny has shown surprising results. In very dirty or heavily circulated condition, the the coin can still bring in anywhere from $18,500, depending on how much of the detail remains visible. However, if a coin in dirty condition happens to have less wear than expected, or is part of a rare minting batch, prices can climb even higher. Cleaned or polished versions often lose value, but coins in natural, untouched, and even dirty condition may appeal more to serious collectors. At high-profile auctions, cleaner specimens of the 1928 penny have reached $21,300 or more, and with the right buyer, even lower-grade coins can command strong bids. If you ever come across a 1928 one penny, especially in dirty condition, here are a few important tips. Cleaning can damage the natural surface and lower the coin's value. Collectors prefer original patina and even dirt. Even through dirt, look for clear outlines of George V's portrait and Britannia's trident or shield. These details affect value. Store the coin in a dry place, ideally in a coin holder, to prevent further corrosion. Compare your coin to auction results to understand its market value before selling or trading. The United Kingdom one penny of 1928 proves that even a coin in very dirty condition can carry historical importance and market value. Its connection to King George V's reign, its timeless Britannia design, and its growing rarity in today's collector's market all contribute to its worth. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist or a beginner just starting your collection, this penny is a reminder that treasures often hide in plain sight, sometimes under layers of dirt. So next time you spot an old, worn, or dirty coin, don't dismiss it. It might just be worth big money in dollars. Next up, we're diving into one of the most historically significant and highly collectible coins, the United Kingdom one penny from the year 1918. What makes this coin especially intriguing is that even in worn or damaged blackened condition, it still attracts strong attention from collectors. Some examples have gone on to sell for impressive amounts in auctions, reaching big values in dollars. Let's break down the history, the unique features, and why this coin remains in high demand. The year 1918 was an important time in British and world history. It marked the end of the First World War, and with it came huge economic and social changes. During this period, the Royal Mint was producing large quantities of coinage to keep up with demand. However, not all of these pennies were minted in the same way. In 1918, apart from coins struck at the Royal Mint in London, production was also contracted to private mints such as King's Norton Metal Company and Heaton Mint in Birmingham. These coins often carry small mint marks, making them stand out in the history of British coinage. Because of the war and the rushed minting process, many coins from this year show signs of wear, damage, or poor striking, which makes surviving examples even more interesting. The 1918 one penny features the classic design of the era. On the obverse, you'll find the portrait of King George V facing left, a design created by Sir Bertram Mackennal. The reverse carries the iconic seated Britannia holding a trident and shield, a symbol of Britain's strength and naval power. What makes the 1918 penny especially fascinating is the possibility of mint marks. Coins struck by the Heaton Mint bear an H mark, while those from the King's Norton Mint show the letters KN. These marks, placed just above the date, can dramatically affect a coin's desirability and value. In worn black damage condition, the coin may appear darkened, with heavy circulation marks and sometimes corrosion. While this condition lowers its grade, it also gives the coin a certain antique charm that many collectors appreciate, especially when it carries a scarce mint mark. Despite being over a century old, the 1918 penny remains in demand because of its historical connections and minting variations. Collectors actively seek out examples with the H or KN mint marks, and even standard issues can fetch strong prices if well preserved. In worn or black damaged condition, rarity still plays a huge role. Many of these coins have been lost to time, melted down, or discarded, so finding an authentic 1918 penny today, even in poor condition, is a small treasure. The fact that it links directly to the final year of the Great War adds to its historical weight, making it more than just a piece of metal, but rather a link to Britain's past. So, how much is a 1918 one penny worth today? The value depends heavily on condition and mint mark. A heavily worn and blackened example may sell for around $5,900 at small auctions or collector markets. However, if the coin bears the rarer mint marks H or KN, the value can rise significantly. Worn examples may fetch $16,500, while better preserved coins with mint marks can sell for thousands of dollars. In some high-grade cases, rarer pieces have been recorded at auctions reaching over $18,500. The key takeaway here is that even damaged coins from this year are not without value. Their historical and numismatic importance keeps them in steady demand. If you come across a 1918 one penny, Always check carefully for the mint marks. Use a magnifying glass to spot the tiny H or KN above the date. This could dramatically increase the coin's worth. Even in poor condition, do not rush to clean or polish the coin, as this can reduce its value. Collectors usually prefer coins in their original state, no matter how worn or darkened they appear. It's also wise to keep coins stored in a protective case to prevent further damage. For those looking to invest, consider pairing lower-grade coins with better-preserved examples to build a complete set, as full collections often bring higher auction prices. The United Kingdom 1 penny of 1918 is more than just a coin. It's a piece of history. Struck during a pivotal moment at the end of World War I, it stands out for its variations, unique mint marks, and enduring collector appeal. Even in worn, blackened, or damaged condition, this penny continues to hold strong value on the auction market, with some examples fetching $1 million depending on rarity. For coin enthusiasts and investors alike, the 1918 1 penny is a fascinating reminder that sometimes, even the most humble and worn coin can turn out to be a rare treasure. Next up, the United Kingdom 1 penny from the year 1913, particularly those surviving in black damage or corroded condition. While damage usually decreases a coin's value, with certain rare issues like this one, even a worn or darkly toned specimen can still hold considerable interest among collectors. We will explore the coin's history, unique characteristics, rarity, market demand, and how much this coin could be worth at auctions today in dollars. The 1913 1 penny belongs to the reign of King George V, who ruled from 1910 until 1936. Coins struck during this period are part of a fascinating era in British history, bridging the Edwardian age and the difficult years leading up to the First World War. The penny itself was minted in London at the Royal Mint, and although millions were produced in 1913, their survival more than a century later, especially in identifiable condition, is what makes them collectible. The coin is made of bronze, with a composition of copper, tin, and zinc, typical of British pennies from this era. Over time, exposure to moisture, handling, and storage has left many coins with heavy tarnish or black damage. Yet collectors still seek them out for their historical significance. The obverse of the 1913 penny features the bare-headed portrait of King George V, facing left, with the Latin inscription, Georgius Vide Jare, Brit, OMN, Rex Fid, Def, IND, IMP, which translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. The reverse depicts Britannia, the seated figure holding a trident and shield, a powerful image that had appeared on British pennies for centuries. Even in black damaged condition, the outline of Britannia and the king's portrait are often visible, giving the coin a distinct antique charm. Each piece has its own story etched by time, making even imperfect coins appealing to enthusiasts. Although 1913 pennies are not the rarest by mintage numbers, what makes them special is their age, condition, and demand among collectors. Coins over a century old naturally become scarce in better preserved states. Surprisingly, even coins in black damaged condition are valued by collectors who focus on completing year sets of pennies from the George V era. Serious collectors often want at least 1 penny from each year of his reign, making 1913 a must-have. Additionally, certain varieties, errors, or unique patinages add to desirability. For those who appreciate the natural aging and darkened surfaces of bronze coins, the black damage appearance can actually make the coin stand out as a piece of history rather than just currency. Now, let's talk about money, the part many of you are waiting for. In the auction market, a 1913 1 penny in heavily circulated or black damaged condition may sell anywhere from $11,500, depending on how visible the details are. However, examples in better preserved states can go for much higher, sometimes $16,200 in extra fine condition. In pristine uncirculated quality, rare as they are, prices can rise above $25,100 at major auctions. The key factor here is that even coins with damage are still collected, and their historical appeal can lift their value above what you'd expect for a worn piece of bronze. If you're interested in owning a 1913 penny, here are some useful tips. First, always examine the details of the coin, even if it appears darkened or blackened. Clear outlines of the king and Britannia increase value. Second, avoid polishing or cleaning damaged coins, as this can destroy their natural patina and reduce their collector appeal. Third, consider keeping them in protective holders to prevent further corrosion. Finally, if you come across one in a collection or marketplace, remember that its true worth lies not only in dollars, but also in its place in the grand story of British coinage. The United Kingdom 1 penny of 1913 is a piece of history you can hold in your hand. Whether in pristine condition or showing black damage from over a century of wear, it remains an iconic coin of the George V era. Collectors continue to prize these pennies for their rarity, charm, and market potential. So next time you stumble across an old bronze penny, don't dismiss it because of damage. It may still hold surprising value. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating world of rare coins.